Good day, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on what time you are listening to this and where you're listening from. I like to greet you properly. So I'm not going to be on here for too long, but I just had to have this conversation. As you see in the title, how do we believe? Like, for those of us that walk by faith, believing comes to us in default. But it amazes me because I had a pretty interesting conversation with a pretty cool person, and their, I guess, view of the world or their intake on life is slightly different than mine. And of course, I'm not one to knock anyone for being who they are. However, it definitely allowed me to have this conversation that it's an interesting conversation, I personally feel, because how do we believe? But before I dive right in, of course I'm going to come from, well, no, let me give myself a second. But if this is your first time listening, I'm MsLalexis. I am a productivity specialist, a personal one, and that is a person that helps you, get to your next step. I'm a life coach as well, but I specialize in productivity. Why are you stuck? How'd you get stuck? And let's go. Let's get it. So that's who I am. I can be found at MsLalexis.com, siegejewelrystore.com, and howbaddoi.com. So that's me. Hello, good day. I'm MsLalexis. But for those of you that have been following along, you know that I'm a woman of faith, and I stand on biblical principles, and everything that I do is backed by the word. And that's the goal that we strive over here. However, today it's still going to come from the word, but it's a question. It's a common question that has started to become more common when it comes to believing. What do you believe in? Why do you believe in it? How do you believe in it? And what makes it a belief? Because, there's a lot of conversation or lifestyles that are breaking away from biblical principles, and or there are a lot of people that believe in the earth or the universe or things of that nature, and they don't believe in the word. And I found that the common denominator, especially having a pretty in-depth conversation yesterday, it was that it's not that the belief is not present, it's there is no belief unless there's evidence of that thing that they believe. So, for instance, and it's not to insult anyone, it's just a conversation just to have, that why we believe or what we believe and where our beliefs come from is really a root of our faith. That's my personal take on it, where you can only believe, and if you are a person that only believes when you see something, then you don't have faith. That was my conclusion of the conversation, and it was not to insult the person that I had the conversation with, because I do consider them a friend. Like, they're cool, they're someone that I just met, and the conversation we had, it was pretty inspiring because it opened my eyes to the opposite side of, I should say, the spectrum, if that is safe to say, that not everyone has faith of a mustard seed. Like, because I'm such a faith believer, I'm such a faith walker, to have that conversation was not only interesting to me, but it was actually powerful because it showed me the other side of not having faith. And having faith is really exactly what the word says it is. It's the hope and the evidence of things not seen, of the unseen. If you have faith, then you believe in a higher power, you believe in the creator, you believe in the most high, because you have the faith to believe that what you don't understand, he created. What you don't believe, you know that God created it. And until he gives you that understanding, if it be that you have the understanding, then you'll have it. And it was just such a cool conversation, because I used to kind of run from conversations like that, because I felt as if my relationship with the Most High wasn't strong enough, or I didn't want to seem preachy or pushy on my beliefs. However, we had a very healthy and safe conversation on being on basically believing or not believing. And to me, I feel that it's powerful to understand how you believe. Not that you have to necessarily explain it to anyone, but this is something that must come from your core. Because if you don't believe either way, you're kind of riding the fence, and no one can really stay in the gray area, because that area, especially if you're one that believes in the word, is such an unsafe place. And it makes sense to why a lukewarm person really will be spit out of, his mouth, as he said in Revelations. But that conversation was so powerful, because it's easy for one that walks by faith to say there is a God and we believe in our God and we trust our creator. But if you're one that walks by sight and you don't necessarily believe that there is a God, then I have come to the conclusion, and it's not that I have the final say so, of course, join in the conversation. Let's talk about it. That belief is faith. Like, faith is definitely something that connects that unbelief. Oh, we have someone joining. Okay, give me just a second. All right, we're going to welcome Michael J. He is a random guy, servant of God, born in Chicagoland, now loving life in Appalachia, writer, public speaker, nonprofit manager, and fan, what is that, of 2000s to the 80s, I think? He can explain that. So let's welcome Michael. All right. Here we go. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday.
Yes, it is a Tuesday, all day.
Right.
I like to say that every now and then. That's what my dad said. It's all day Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever the day is.
Right.
So yeah, you are saying it right. There's two ways to say where I'm at. It's either Appalachia or, as we can say it in Kentucky, Appalachia.
Oh, okay.
It's throwing an apple at you in Appalachia.
All right.
That's how I remember it. Because, when I was living in Chicagoland, I would say, Appalachian Mountains, Appalachia. But then when I moved to Kentucky, I was wrong. It's like, no, Michael, say it right.
Right.
Appalachia. And, and like, there's some things like, I would say cement. No, Michael, it's cement,
Right.
It's not tire, it's tar. You got a flat tar. And there's other things that I can go on and on and on and on and on. And, I'm learning the language. Although I still, when I go back to Chicago, they say, you don't sound like you're from Chicago anymore, Michael. But say, you don't sound like you're from Kentucky anymore either. So I'm in between right now.
Gotcha.
So that's one thing. Second thing is, and then we'll continue with your discussion, is I'm a fan of the 80s. Kind of like Top of the Morning.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. That's where I got stuck. I was like, Gotcha.
Anyway, so yes, we walk by faith and not by sight, as you were saying, because faith is the substance of things not seen.
Right.
And we don't know, we can't see faith. We know we have the Bible, and that's the physical word, but a lot of times we can't understand the promises until we see them. But we have to have faith that God's word is true, and because it is.
Exactly.
There's no doubting God's word. We have to accept it, or if we don't accept it, then we pay the price. And I don't want to tell anybody to pay the price, because the alternative to heaven is not a fun place.
Right. It's so true.
But why would you not want to go to where streets of gold are, where God's going to give you a mansion, where you're going to be with our loved ones forever? Why would you not want to desire the best?
I agree with you. The conversation, I don't know if you heard the beginning, but I totally agree with you. It kind of, this conversation came up because I had the conversation yesterday with a new person that I consider a friend, and they totally don't believe. Through the conversation, my conclusion was, wow, it's really, there's no faith, because they said, I won't believe until I can see, until there's proof. I believe in the earth. I love animals. I believe in the universe. This was the conversation from the person I was speaking with. And as they kept talking, the common denominator in the sentence was, I won't believe it till I see it. So instantly, that took me to faith. I was like, wow, that's what separates those that believe versus those that don't believe. Because you believe in something, but you don't have the faith to believe in the unseen.
Exactly. And obviously, we all have faith in other things when we don't see, when outside of God. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example, a dinosaur.
Right.
I've never seen a dinosaur. I can't say, because I can't see doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So,
right.
Seeing is believing. I just want to just throw something in there, because a lot of people will say, that was millions and millions and millions of years ago. That might not necessarily be true.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm so with you. Yeah.
Just when we go back to Genesis, it says, obviously the whole 7 days in creation, which I totally believe. But the point of death wasn't even entered into the world until man and woman sinned.
Exactly.
When that happens, that's when death came into the world. So you can't tell me, dinosaurs lived millions of years ago and they died, and then man just happened to come upon the scene, millions of years later. No.
Yeah, I totally follow that. Me personally, I feel that's a form of deception, the time frame, but that's a whole other conversation for sure.
Well, yeah, and I get it, but it's like, once again, we live by faith and not by sight.
Right.
So we have to, even if we don't believe in God, which we should, we have faith in other things. Why can't we have faith in God, even though we don't see Him? We need to be, doers of the word, and He will make Himself known.
Absolutely.
If we do His work, He will bless us. He will give us grace beyond measure, even if it's not what we want. Paul's thorn in the flesh. He said, "Okay, can you take that away from me, God?" And God says, "My grace is sufficient for thee." So we're not always going to get what we want, but God's going to take care of us, and that's all we need. That's all I need. Because I'm here for a time, limited. I'm going to be with Him forever. I don't know when I'm going, but once again, I'm going to close with this, because I want to just be concise. We're on these.
Oh no, you're good.
Yeah, we basically, there's some things I don't need to know, some things I don't want to know, like, and the good things too, like heaven. I don't need to know about heaven until I get there, because I want to be surprised.
I like that. Yeah.
Hey, I don't need to know every little detail, because expectations are so, like, I don't need expectations. I just want to know that, He's take care of me, and when He wants to tell me something, in His timing, I'll accept it. So.
Exactly.
I'll let you go. Yeah, you carry on. I just want to kind of agree with you, and just kind of throw in a couple of my 2 cents from the Word, and great topic. This app, I will just say this app is so positive, and it's such a great community.
It is.
We have a great community of people. There's some people that I love everybody. We're commanded to love everybody, obviously.
Right.
But some people are easier to love than others. Put it that way.
I agree.
On this app, there's some beautiful people that really just share the word, and just it's a wonderful thing. So you're
Yeah,
doing a great job,
thank
and you
you.
keep on, and I will again talk to you soon. I promise you that.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, Michael. I appreciate that. Like everything you
My
said
pleasure.
was definitely I love to hear other people's perspective even if you agree or disagree with me. It's awesome for us to have these discussions, especially those of us that are Bible believers because it's always easy for us of course to communicate with those that completely believe, but what do you do when you walk to a person or if you talk to a person and they don't believe? And that was the conversation I had yesterday, and it didn't make me stumble. However, it presented the power of faith. Because if you're, new to listening to me or new to following me, I sell mustard seed jewelry, for instance. Like, I stand on faith. Every piece of jewelry that I sell has a small mustard seed in it to remind us. It's like a daily affirmation that you can wear. But it's not to talk about the jewelry itself, but it's just to show where my level of faith is. Like, I live by faith, I walk by faith. And to meet a person that, you know, clearly said out of their mouth, there is no God, I don't believe in God, if you can't do this, if you can't fly, or if you can't, do different things, then how can there be a God? And as they were speaking, I just continued to present different questions like, okay, well, if you don't believe in a higher power, if you don't believe there's God, if you don't believe in the creator, then what do you believe in? Because earth came from something. The rain comes out of somewhere. There's things that we don't have answers to, but when you believe in the word, you stand by faith. Your faith is what gives you peace of the unknown, in other words. So, and as Michael had shared, if you don't have faith in the creator, you basically do have faith in something else, but it's not God. It's kind of like a doubting faith, I should say. In other words, if you're not having faith, then you are doubting belief to an extent. And it's not to insult those that don't walk by faith. However, that to me, not to be on here too long, but how do we believe is definitely the evidence of faith. It's like if you lack faith, then you're gonna believe in something. However, it makes more sense to why you don't believe in God. And those of us that are Bible readers, and Matthew, when Christ was on this earth, he talked about, how when he shared the parables, the seed was gonna fall on different ground. Everyone was not going to receive it. But if you have a heart to hear who he is and to hear his word, then your faith will understand the parable to believe, wow, you are the Messiah. You are, God's son. So it's just very interesting. And I just wanted to have this conversation just real quick because and to encourage those of us that are in the word, when you do walk upon someone like that, or if you are introduced in a conversation like that, you don't have to be in an argumentative place because then you will lose your witness completely. And the more that you study his word, Christ was very wise. He was very sharp. People tried to act as if he didn't answer those that were up against him without a direct answer. But I say all that to say you got to stand strong on your beliefs. You must, stand strong on what you stand for. Okay, if the person you're talking to doesn't believe, it's not your job to try to convince them to believe. The way that you plant that seed with that person that doesn't believe is you listen. Two, your response is calm enough but wise enough not to waver in your faith, but to understand, okay, those are your beliefs. However, these are my beliefs. And and it was pretty cool because I will admit that was one of the healthiest disagreeing conversations I can say that I've had in a while without it being taken to an offense. Not that everyone is going to end peacefully. However, when you know what you stand for and you know who you have a relationship with, that is your power. And the word teaches us, it is a proverb that tells you don't argue with a fool because a fool will win every time. And it's not to necessarily call that person a fool, but in essence, if you believe in what you believe in and you stand by faith and you understand his word and the power of it, then you don't have to argue. You can show love with explaining through questions like, okay, well, if you don't believe, I'm not here to fight you, but these are my beliefs. It's not that you have to waver in your faith, in other words, when you walk amongst or when you're introduced to a person that doesn't believe. So I have been on here way longer than I intended to be. I just had to get this out. It was like a burning fire inside of me. So if we're not going to have any more visitors, or if no one wants to, continue the conversation, of course, you can leave me a message or send me a message or however you'd like, and we can talk about it on the side. But it's amazing that my conclusion with how do we believe is we have to have faith to believe in a God, to believe in a creator. And if you don't, then you are still believing, but you just don't believe in the power of the creator. And it's hard for me to understand that because I am one that is such a woman of faith. I believe in the word. I stand by the word. And to leave you with the scripture, I've been reading John chapter 1, and it's talking about the experience of Christ being the Word. It even starts, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So, and it just goes on. And to leave with one small nugget is, I had also shared with the person I was communicating with that didn't have the belief in the Bible. They said, well, the Bible was written by people, so how can that be inspired by God? And the one thing that I shared was that that's what separates mankind from any other beast or from any other creation is language, is word. So the fact that he gave us his word, that's what gives us that separation as persons, because I feel that the person kind of believes in the power of like animals and that type of field. And I'm not to knock it because I don't understand that. That's not something that I believe in. But I had left them with the question, and what separates us from the animal kingdom is that we have language, we have word, we have communication, whether it's written or whether it's verbal. And that was one of the first things in Genesis that God shared with us in his word, was that in the beginning was the word. So that is something to think about, and that's something to where my faith stands on. It's like, yeah, the power of language, the power of communication is definitely power, because yes, an animal may be able to communicate, but it's not with language and it's not with words. Yes, you may have a parrot or two or a couple of, exceptions. However, they kind of are taught those things from the human race, and that's how they kind of regurgitate it. In other words, I mean, the rabbit hole with that can run so deep, but I just find that, if you are looking to see something before you believe it, kind of examine your faith meter, I should say, because the faith in itself is the evidence of things unseen and things hoped for. Though you can find the scripture, I believe it is Hebrews 12. I'm sorry, I don't have that all in front of me, but we're in the Google generation. Of course, you can Google it. I have the word in my heart, so that's pretty much that. So again, I thank you all for listening. I thank you all for joining in. Don't be a stranger, of course. Until next time, I hope you have the best day ever. If you find yourself complaining, don't waste any more time complaining. It's not going to solve anything. It's just going to make your day a little harder. So try to adjust those thoughts and think positive things. I know it sounds so cliche, but it really does make a difference. So again, thank you for listening, and until next time, good day.